Welcome to the program. The weekend has again illustrated the destructive power of nature, from the earthquake that devastated Christchurch in New Zealand to the gale force winds that lashed the New South Wales south coast. But Victoria certainly didn't need another lesson from nature. It's only 19 months since Victoria's Black Saturday bushfires, and now the state's emergency services have been put to the test again, this time by the worst floods in nearly 20 years. Warnings have been issued for more than 20 rivers across the state, and hundreds of people have been advised to evacuate their homes. It's been a real-life trial of systems to deliver phone messages and door-knock residents, with the feedback so far cautiously positive. Most importantly, no lives have been lost. Mary Gearan reports.
Not since the spring of '93 has the Victorian river town and fruit district of Shepparton seen anything like this.
If we're here this time tomorrow, I expect to be standing at knee height or even waist height. That's our prediction. It could well be that we get to 11.3 metres, which is our 1993 flood level. And if that happens, that means there's going to be some inundation in and around Shepparton.
Defence Force personnel are lending a hand, while residents and tourists gather their belongings.
We're right to go. We're going to head out to Ardmona to higher ground and just see how long we'll need to stay out there for.
Going to hook up and see what happens there.
Yeah,
or
just
hook up
sort of make sure that we're ready to go.
Too deep. If it gets start coming down through here, we'll move.
Not panicking yet, I don't think.
Further east in Wangaratta, about 60 houses were evacuated overnight. Statewide, more than 300 properties have been affected, and the damages bill looks set to top $10 million.
The worst, I think, is yet to come in terms of those floods.
This is the worst flooding we've seen in northeast Victoria for over 15 years, and we're also seeing some records being set in other parts of the state, where at Charlton today it's the worst flood they've seen in nearly 30 years.
The clean-up is underway for some after flooding peaked over the weekend in areas ranging from the north of Ballarat right up to the state's alpine region in the northeast. But with floodwaters continuing to rise in areas right across the state, residents from communities as far west as Horsham, across to the southeast in Bairnsdale, are now bracing for the worst.
A number of our rivers are still to rise and reach their peaks, and that will occur over the next 48 hours. However, some of those rivers may maintain at that level for quite some time, several days in fact, and we are expecting some rain later in the week, 20 to 30 millimetres at the most up in the northeast, so that will contribute in some small part to those rivers taking a little longer to recede.
Victoria's emergency systems have been put into overdrive, not least to prove a point in the aftermath of the Black Saturday Bushfire Royal Commission.
I think the systems that are in place have been working well. The effort of the SES has been, I think to date, it's just been magnificent. We've had more than 600 SES volunteers out across the state, many of them working through Saturday night and again through last night. The coordination through the incident control centres, I think, has been first rate.
The State Emergency Service used an SMS alert system developed since the fires. Its only drawback is that currently messages are only sent to numbers attached to billing addresses in the crisis-affected areas, which meant some residents missed out.
Emergency alert is due to be upgraded very soon to allow us to get beyond those billing addresses, but I guess it is only one tool amongst many in which we use to alert communities. The first phase is through our emergency broadcasters. We then move to door knocking and the like, and emergency alert is that extra tool in the box now for alerting communities.
There are some Victorians who face the current crisis battle-hardened. We've been following Steve Guilfoyle as he and his family have rebuilt their home and lives after a narrow escape from death on Black Saturday in the town of Marysville.
I was going to have one.
Yeah, I'm all right, mate. No, I'm just cold.
Just as he was planning for an incident-free spring, a couple of days ago, Steve Guilfoyle found his own street that still bears the reminders of the 9 lives lost there had become a waterway.
We come down here and had a look and just could not believe it. Just, that's the road. No, it's not. It's a river. Are we in the road or on the road, or are we in the river?
The uncleared trees that fell during the fires are now diverting the nearby Taggart River into residential land.
Everybody's having a laugh, like, OK, what's next, what can they do next? We've had the fires, now we've got the floods. What's next, bring it on. And that's the attitude, bring it on, just throw what you can at me.
Steve Guilfoyle helped a mate sandbag this brand new house that had been rebuilt after the fires, now soaked throughout.
The water was as high as the road, about a metre higher than it is now, rushing towards the house. If it weren't for the efforts of the owner and his mate sandbagging the house, the damage there would have been even greater. As it was, his timber business has floated downstream. The owner is off now, seeking to have his services restored and applying for emergency flood assistance just a couple of months after rebuilding his house.
People don't know where they stand insurance-wise with the floods, on top of claims that they've had with their houses through the fires or whatever. They don't know whether the insurance companies are going to sort of come through and say, yeah, OK, you've copped another one, we'll look after you and all the rest of it, and they're quite worried about it.
The paradox is that in northeastern Victoria, the floods have finally ended the worst drought in the history of the region. For years they've been praying for rain in the Shepparton area as water storages dried up. Now they're worried about how much damage nature's dramatic turn will bring as swollen waterways flow to the Murray River. But in the long term, the floods will provide critical supplies for struggling irrigation communities and environmentally stressed areas.
It's obviously a disaster for Victorians, particularly around where that rainfall's fallen, but the water that's there is then going to flow down the River Murray, and it'll be feeding into places in New South Wales, Victoria, right down to South Australia, and it's going to obviously have enormous economic and environmental benefits.
Professor Richard Kingsford has monitored the worrying environmental fallout in the Murray-Darling Basin from the long years of drought. He now believes there's finally some cause for optimism.
This sort of amount of water going down the system is going to be very, very important in terms of rescuing some of the wetland systems along the River Murray.
All these river red gums that you see around you here now, they will get a much needed drink after 15 years of drought and no rain, very little rain, no runoff.
It's a silver lining many will cling to in the next 48 hours.
Nice to hear some good news mixed in with the bad. Mary Gearan with that report.